Chicken and dumplings is a dish that I didn't grow up eating, but when I eat it now as an adult, I somehow gush with nostalgia. It's something about the combination of dried herbs and biscuits. That smell is baked into my brain as mom food, and it makes me feel warm and content in a profound way. So today, I'm gonna show you guys how to make a really beautiful version of this dish for yourselves at home. To get started, I'll grab 6 boneless, skinless chicken thighs. Thighs over whole roasted chicken because texturally, thighs deliver pretty much the same result as a whole roasted bird, but they cook a lot faster and they leave out the possibility of overcooked breast meat. Now to prep these thighs for the pot, I'll season them with a strong pinch of salt, maybe a half teaspoon per side. Then I'll give them a strong pinch of black pepper as well. Then I'll flip them over and hit them on the backside. And once these thighs are all seasoned up, I'll scoot them over to a 400F oven to roast them for about 30 minutes. While that cooks, I'll cut my veggies. Next, I'll grab 1 large white onion and give it what I call the weeknight dice. To do it, I sliced the onions 4 to 5 times from pole to pole. Then I turned it 90 degrees and sliced it thinly perpendicular to those original slices. This is an easier, simpler way to cut an onion for more rustic dishes where a perfect dice isn't required. In total, I need about 300 grams. Next, I'll slice 3 to 4 stalks of celery tip to tip 3 times. Then I'll turn it 90 degrees and give it a medium-ish dice. In total, I want 150 grams of celery. Next is carrots. I need 150 grams of those, diced to the same size as the celery. Then I'll grab a medium fennel bulb, cut it in half, then nip out the woody core near the stem end. From there, I'll slice it 4 to 5 times top to bottom, turn it 90 degrees, and chop it into a size that's close to the rest of this mirepoix. And once I've got 150 grams of fennel cut up, I'll grab 4 to 5 garlic cloves and just smush them into the bowl with everything else. I'm not worried about keeping the garlic separate because everything's gonna be cooking together over low heat and it's not gonna burn. Back in my oven, these thighs have gotten their 30 minutes of roasting, so I'll pull them out. As you can see, in 30 minutes, these thighs got cooked all the way through and then some. They're actually well beyond 180F, and in my opinion, that's a good thing. Weirdly, with thighs, the more you cook them, the more collagen inside turns to gelatin and the more tender they become. It's pretty counterintuitive. Now, I'm gonna let these thighs rest, then grab a heavy bottom pot that's about 6 3/4 quarts deep, then drop it on the stove over medium heat. And once this thing's hot, I'll add in a whole stick of butter, or 115 grams, and give it a melt. Behind that, in goes all my veggies, a strong pinch of salt, and then I'll stir to get a sweat going on. What is a sweat exactly? Well, sweating is a cooking process that gently cooks the vegetables, causing them to release their moisture and soften without browning, while also intensifying their flavor. This is different from sauteing, where higher heat is used to achieve some kind of caramelization. And since this is going to be a light and creamy dish, dark, roasty, sauteed flavors aren't going to be welcome. They would just muddy up the flavors. And after about 6 to 8 minutes of stirring this often over medium heat, these vegetables are properly sweat. So next in goes 135 grams of all-purpose flour, and then I'll stir that in to get a roux started. And if you're gluten-free, a decent cup for cup flour should totally work for this roux, or later on when we're making dumplings. And once my flour is stirred into this buttery veg with no lumps, I'll add in 100 grams of drinkable but not expensive dry white wine. Once that's in, I'll quickly scrape and deglaze the bottom of this pot to get rid of any floury bits that might be sticking. Then I'll cook this wine for 30 seconds to remove its raw edge. Next, in goes 1,200 grams of store-bought chicken broth and 100 grams of heavy cream. By the way, if you don't want to buy cream just for this recipe, you can use 800 grams of stock and 400 grams of milk. The final dish won't be as creamy, but it'll still be quite good. Next, in goes 3 sprigs of thyme, a couple of bay leaves, then my secret ingredient, 2 grams of poultry seasoning. This stuff just makes dishes taste like it was cooked by a mom. In a good way. It's pure nostalgia, and it obviously enhances chicken flavored dishes quite a lot. Speaking of chicken, I need to cut the stuff that we roasted earlier real quick so that I can get it into the pot before we cover everything with dumplings. To break it down, I'll cut it into strips, then chop it roughly. I want pieces that are medium to small and kind of irregular, almost as if they were rotisserie meat that we picked off the bone, then chopped down. This more heterogeneous texture just works a lot better than large cubes of chicken, in my opinion. And once this chicken is all chopped down, I'll slide it into the pot along with 200 grams of frozen peas. From here, I'll give this whole pot a stir to combine while also scraping the bottom to make sure the thickened liquid isn't getting stuck. It turns out that flour thickened liquids get really grippy on the bottom of the pot and burn easily. So to prevent that from here on out, I recommend keeping your heat on medium low or lower. Now I'm gonna let this simmer for 5 minutes while I make my dumpling dough and thank Seed for sponsoring this video. Seed's DSO1 is a clinically and scientifically studied pre and probiotic probiotic that I've been taking for about 3 years now. And I think the fact that I've been taking it every morning for the last few years has allowed me to get away with being kind of a bad boy when it comes to eating foods that aren't particularly gut healthy. Generally, I try to get plenty of fiber and vegetables in my diet, but when there's a big pot of chicken and dumplings around all week, I'm gonna eat that. And normally that could be a problem, but I've got DSO1 backing me up by helping me not get backed up. Know what I'm saying? Look, I'm not saying that DSO1 helps with literally everything, but it does actually support my gut health and keep me pretty regular. Plus, there's strains of bacteria inside the probiotic that help with your skin health and your heart health. When you first sign up for a Seed subscription, they'll send you this refillable glass jar and travel vial. Then all your refills after that come in this sweet compostable safe pouch. So if you guys are interested in having award-winning, Oprah-approved BMs in the year 2024, use my link down in the description and use code Brian25 to get 25% off your first Seed order. Thank you, Seed. Now to make this dumpling dough, I'll combine 360 grams of all-purpose flour, 8 grams of salt, 12 grams of baking powder. Yes, that's a lot of baking powder, but the extra lift here is going to help give us cloud-level dumpers in just a second. Then I'll add in 4 grams of black pepper and then grab my wet ingredients from the stove and stream those in while stirring gently to combine. In the pot here, I've got 75 grams of melted butter and 340 grams of milk. I warmed them together in the pot, but never let things get hot. And once I've got this buttery milk poured into my flour here, I'll stir a few more times to combine, but I'm not going to over stir. We want pretty much zero gluten formation in this dough, so barely combine it. Any more stirring and these dumplings will be chewy and tough instead of flaky and light. Back at the stove, my chicken mixture is looking really beautiful, but there's one more step before dumpling time. Now, before we start cooking the dumpers in our chicken stuff, we need to taste it for salt. And depending on how much you added to your chicken before you put it in the oven, you may or may not need to add more at this point. So I'm just gonna give it a little slurp. And it tastes pretty good, but there's not gonna be an opportunity to season this from this point forward because there's gonna be a roof of dumplings on top. So I'm adding one more strong pinch. I'm gonna give that a stir. That's perfect. Next, I'll drop in 12 to 16 dumplings. The number that you get kind of depends on how large you want to make them, but in my opinion, the perfect size dumpling is made by 2 teaspoons. And to get a dumpling properly formed here, I prefer to quenelle them. Quenelle is just a fancy word for passing the dough back and forth between 2 spoons to roughly round it off. This way the dumplings are all just the same size and shape, and they cook in roughly the same amount of time. And once I've got just about 16 dumps dropped into my pot here, I'll lower the heat, pop on a lid, and then set a timer for 15 minutes. 15 minutes later, as you can see, these dumplings have grown a lot. They kind of expand to perfectly fill the space available to them. To test for doneness here, I like to scoop one out and cut into it just to make sure it's not gluey on the inside. And that is not gluey at all. It's super fluffy looking and cooked all the way through. Back at the pot, the final texture of the chicken mix should be thicker than creamy chicken soup, but thinner than sausage gravy. But I lean on the thicker side personally because I think that's a little bit more comforting. Now to plate this up, I'll ladle some chicken gravy or broth into a bowl, then top with 2 to 3 dumplings per person. Wow. Wow. You guys, this dish is perfect for those nights when you just want to wear sweats and watch Friends. You know, maybe the one where Joey puts his head in the turkey, or the one where Ross says the wrong name at the altar. You guys know what I'm talking about. London, baby. Anyways, I hope you guys make this one soon and eat way too much of it. Hit me up in the comments when you're sitting on the couch all full and feeling kind of sick on dumplings. You're welcome in advance. And if you want to see another classic comfort food refined, then please check out this video for ground beef stroganoff, another mom classic that I think you shouldn't miss. I'll see you there.